Well, that's not the theme song for All About Aesthetics. That's actually a sneak preview. I've been working on a piano. As you know, this will be the 10-year anniversary of my hard listening, my invention and first hard listening album. And for that anniversary, I'm writing a solo piano work. And I'm gonna basically like to tour or play, at a piano much like this. This new piece, and so I'm going to do a kind of a double bill. I'm going to do sort of play some older material like the Royal Blue Trickle Suite, which I did it 2013 to 2024. This is the new one. Should I say what the name is of this? Should I say it has? I opened it up like the theme song a little bit. The name of this piano piece is called Bob Fosse. That's what the name of it is. Any of it. That's that. I'm going to go over to my chair here. I have a lot of stuff to do today. This is, of course, is All About Aesthetics, Part 5. Last episode we were doing kind of a little bit more rarefied type show because we were dealing with among my favorite filmmakers, Wilbur Bresson. Of course, when I do these shows, I never stick to one topic. Of course, I try to bring everything home to maybe a central person, individual artwork, in this case filmmaker. And I showed, I talked about how he loved the movie For Your Eyes Only. Bresson did. He liked that. So I showed a clip of that and talked about his style. And so I thought I would go in the other direction to the more popular. I mean, that is more popular certainly than Bresson, and do a kind of a poppy episode. I mean, we're going to do more like this. So I'm going to come back, of course, to a leitmotif in a lot of our episodes, Farrah Fawcett. So I've worn the Farrah Fawcett t-shirt. I have got the Farrah Fawcett cup. And I'm going to redirect our attentions now to popularity in general, pop culture, commercial culture, entertainment culture, stardom, celebrity, sex symbols, aesthetics of those kinds of things. Now, it's interesting. I should talk about what I'm wearing. So this is one of the most recent things I had made. And it's fabric is camel hair. Okay. Now, this is what's really interesting. Look what I have here. I said I would discuss custom / bespoke. Those are synonyms. As well as made to order or sort of lower level, clothes that you can specify details on what you're having made. You can do that with made to order, but it's done by sort of machines and a team of tailors. Working with machines. And it's not exactly the most individual pattern. What I'm wearing now, of course, they cut a paper pattern. It's totally individual. But you'll notice this is very similar. Look at this. Now, when you know it, I don't know if you can see the label here. If you'll read that, it says end overshot Mitch Hampton is at 520 something 97. That means this jacket, which I can no longer wear, this sport coat or jacket, is from 1997. And so the way that I dress, which is just my own thing, admittedly, it's idiosyncratic and peculiar to me, is there are things you just have to have because they're practical. So I always, so things like that is you say you need a dark suit, for example, or you need a charcoal suit, or you need a navy jacket, odd jacket, or sometimes it's called a blazer, right? Well, one of the things I always like to have is some kind of, not overcoat, not top coat, but camel hair sport coat. And so this one I had designed with the lapels going up here to give it it's a little sleeker. This is from, again, but I thought it was so interesting. I opened up this lapel. This is called the lapel here, this part of the coat. And if you look here really closely, do you see that crinkly effect? It's kind of hard to see. I don't know, can you see it? Even though this is made to measure from the 90s by Charlie Davidson and Andover Shop, this chest piece, that when you see that, that's a sign of a hand-sewn inner interlining. And that's one big difference between mass market menswear and, you know, higher level menswear, is whether the interlinings, you know, what you put the different pieces together, are glued or fused or done by hand. So even though this is machine, you can see the handwork. And I'm going to get up a little bit here, remove this. I'm wearing different accessories now, so I'm going to remove this. This vest or waistcoat I'm wearing is part of a suit. And I chose, don't worry, I'm coming back. I'm just getting my television and getting things in order. I chose to treat the vest of the suit as an odd vest, which you can do, because I kind of designed my clothing to, here we go, getting my television, getting my stuff, to be flexible, flexibility. Trying to get my stuff in order here. There we go. Flexibility. And so, you know, when I order something, because of the range and level that I'm working with and in, I have to choose really carefully. Now, I said, you know, in episodes past that I like to wear plain things, by which I mean I always wear some kind of jacket, because I dress the way they did sort of 60 years ago, 60, 75, and maybe it may not be the style of literally 65, 70 years ago, because actually the style is about 20 years prior to even that. But, you know, being in your shirt sleeves is like being in underwear. So, you know, to be dressed when you leave the four walls of this home or wherever I'm going to have some kind of a jacket. And so in winter, you're going to wear thicker things. But anyhow, interesting thing about camel hair, I got out this book, and this is a book that talks about the different. This book was from 1990, and I have it earmarked here. Yeah, camel hair. And so I chose a weight that's meant to be worn as a jacket, as opposed to a, something you wear only outdoors to cover your jacket, overcoat or top coat. And it says here the camel hair. It says, hair taken from the outer coat of camel, of a patrician camel, is coarse and can be as long as 15 inches with a diameter of 20 to 120 microns. Hair taken from the undercoat, however, is very fine and soft, has great thermal properties. It is usually a reddish or light brown color, right? And it says that the animal lives in the Middle East. Now, interesting, it says the weave is a twill weave. Now, you wouldn't know it. See, I talked about already that there's these two kinds of cloth. There's a sort of a worsted, which is a hard-wearing cloth that has a line. And that's why I prefer worsted clothing to woolen clothing. They're both wool. Like a worsted is a wool, and so a woolen is a wool. But woolen is more like a sweater. It's got a fuzzy quality, but that's my least favorite type of cloth because it doesn't make a line. It's a little bit like a pullover, or like those things everybody seems to wear these days. Those kind of those vests, sleeveless vests, those parka type things. It's kind of it's not that material. It's like a sweater type material. It's like a knit. It's more like a knit. And this is kind of interesting because what I'm wearing here is actually a twill, but it's a twill with a finish. It gives it a more plush quality. But of course, it doesn't work in a trouser by definition because it's not. It's what we would call. It's not a hard cloth like a worsted, or a cavalry twill, or whipcord. These are all terms. So what's interesting about this book is that they have this here, and a lot of these books are falling apart that I got, and you can see here all these different examples and different things in this book. Yeah, and this is one of those old books. And we're dealing, as always, in this series with things that have volume and mass, or mass and volume. That is, they're in the world. So if we're dealing with books, we're going to deal with a book that folds open, takes up a little space. The one exception, of course, are things on screens, pictures and movies that you put on a screen. But a lot of the stuff I'll be showing, like this clip I'm going to show, are documents of things that had volume and mass, things that were kind of either a performance or a book or a art object. And so I thought we would just want to make sure I know how to proceed here. Farah, okay. So on my show, as you know, if you listen to my episode, I had Wendy Steiner on, and this is the book by Wendy Steiner. It's a really great episode. I highly recommend you listen to my Wendy Steiner episode. She talks about writing operas. She writes librettos for operas. That could be its own topic. Anyhow, in this book, The Real Thing, The Model in the Mirror of Art, I learned some things I did not know about Farrah Fawcett. I learned that she was I believe her last partner in her life was this guy, Keith Edmeyer. And so I had heard that he had done a project with her. And so I ordered, again, something with volume and mass. This, I think, quite extraordinary document of their work together. Keith Edmeyer is very interesting. He's one of, again, I had debated how I wanted to talk about postmodernism. I thought, well, should I do a series on what is postmodernism? I thought, no, I'm not going to do its own separate series. I'm going to involve that topic inside these episodes because, depending on how you define the term, it's so all-encompassing and so vast and so one of the hallmarks, one of the defining features of postmodernism, so eclectic that I think it would be best just to include it and not get too bogged down. But for the sake of argument, or for the sake of kind of definitional impulse here, well, what is it? Well, it's, you know, the things that happened starting in the late 50s, early 60s, 1960s, the last previous century, basically till now. And it's those things in culture and art that are committed to being consciously eclectic and kind of part company with modernism or modern, what's before the post, right? And you know, these are very, very inexact, crude designations, so don't hold me to it 100%. But there's enough truth in what I'm talking about. I'm a postmodernist. My music is postmodern. You know, you could say, well, what makes it that? So, I don't know. I just did a concert Friday night, and in one of my pieces of music, there's a kind of an impressionistic passage with these repeated notes. It's a little bit solemn, a little bit stately. And then the music goes off into a rhythm and blues episode, which seems to come out of the blue, pun may be intended. And that's really, of course, very postmodern to do that. There was a book, well, I don't want to get too bugged, but anyhow, Keith Edmeyer is one of the people associated with that, one of the many people. And one of the other things that we postmodernists, if I could put it that way, about us is that we're not afraid of the popular. We're not against consumer items. We're not against entertainment. We're not necessarily for those things per se. In other words, we're not primarily looking to get the most units sold, but we're not afraid of it. And we also, another way I like to put it is that we're world embracing rather than world denying. So we're not, you know, getting back to, again, it keeps yanking doing this. I hate this. Stay on there. Technology. Instead of being unworldly, we are worldly in that sense. And so we would be a postmodernist painter would want to paint Farrah Fawcett, or even have a relationship with Farrah Fawcett herself, as Keith Edmeyer did, and make art with her about her life, about his life, and about, drumroll, the 1970s. So you'll see here, he's explicitly obsessed with the 70s, as am I, and he's 57 years old, I'm 57 years old, and this is a video from the Walker Art Center from 11 years ago, in which his art project, it's not Farrah, we'll get to Farrah in a little bit, you'll hear him talk about it, see what you think.
Keith Edmeyer, as an artist who is very interested in looking back to the past for subject matter, he decided to remake his entire childhood home where he grew up in suburban Chicago in the 1970s. What we're showing in Lifelike is the kitchen from that house.
I'm depicting the interior of the house from 1971 as it would have looked at the moment that they moved in. All the appliances and the furnishings, those would have been things my parents would have been involved with. This period that I was depicting isn't a very collectible period. The stove or the refrigerator are almost considered landfill.
Everything from the tiles on the walls to the wallpaper was recreated based on family photographs.
I would try to do drawings based on, in this case, the wallpaper, and then eventually have it hand silk screened as wallpaper. The present owner had her grandson scrape up a piece of this tile, and I used that fragment to make a pattern. Then I had that laser etched onto a piece of contemporary vinyl composite tile. The table and chair set were cast from the only existing chair, so molds were made of that. If you look closely, there's details that you'll find a little bit of my hand in them, as well as there being things that are manufactured. The first time it was installed, yeah, it was uncanny. It did almost function like a time machine in a way, because I had to really just shake myself out of it. I'm actually installing an art exhibition. I'm not a child anymore in suburban Illinois. That was something I've never experienced with an artwork of mine before. I was really interested in the idea of the period room, but this idea of the model home. So almost removing the personal history of it being inhabited. I'm amazed about how many people come to the piece and they tell me that I grew up in the same kitchen, almost identically, or the same kitchen, but it was an avocado green color palette. Removing some of those elements that would have been specific to me or my...
So that's very much in keeping with, what I've been discussing. Now, I think I'm going to show you some parts of this book because, I did not know, again, Farrah Fawcett and Keith Edmeyer. Because if you look in this book, let's look at some of his other work, his sculptures. So doesn't this remind you of Dwayne Hansen? Do you folks know Dwayne Hansen's work? Like the security guard and the, but here's something I didn't know. Where are we here? This is, well, hold off on that. This is, let me try to get that's Farrah Fawcett and him working on making something. I mean, he wrote to her and they became involved. They had, I guess, developed a relationship. And she said that she missed being a visual artist, that this was part of her childhood and adolescence that she wanted to recapture. And so they made this work together, sort of very, so even though she's a muse in a sense for him, it's still deeply, deeply egalitarian as you could possibly make anything. This is very famous. This is Wendy Steiner, the hair, the finger in the hair is kind of a little bit, like the Michelangelo a little bit. See, this is very much that kind of quotation and that kind of, but I was quite surprised at something I didn't know about. I didn't know that Keith Edmeyer collected 70s things. So we have this Dynamite magazine. That's one of his pieces there. Farrah again. Dynamite. And I was looking for, I can't seem to find it now, but he did an Evel Knievel tribute. Again, another 70s icon. This is a photo of the two of them. That closes the book. And that was their project of sort of mixing sculpture and paint. And, she made a statue of him and vice versa. And that's an example of, he worked also with Matthew Barney, who's one of my favorite visual artists of the past. One of these days I'd love to do just a whole thing just on Matthew Barney's Cream Master, And I'm not surprised he worked with Matthew Barney. There's this kind of overlap there. But he's an example of an artist that says, in a more modernistic artist like Bresson. Bresson is actually textbook definition of a modernist. A modernist wants a kind of a purity, a purity, wants to, in a way, criticize the world, critique the world, deny aspects of the world. I mean, of course, all artists, whatever their category you want to put them in, are all dealing with the world in one way or the other. But I think the question of attitude and, the question of how much do you borrow or utilize the world is what's going to determine how you're going to be seen and how you will see and how you will what kind of work you're going to be doing. Was this guy recreating his childhood home? It's a very it's very complex. And so I wanted to maybe have fun today a little bit with some again, this is all fair use. So everything I'm doing in this episode when I use
Silk screen as wallpaper.
video clips like
The
this.
present owner.
Do they give you the same award for the sexiest male?
Is to popular culture, popular pop culture. These are things that are really well, they sell a lot and they're beloved. Kind of like figures and people and ideas that are just really, really, I don't know, they're not overlooked, shall we say. And so I thought it was fun. I'm going to show some related things from the era. So you could say this is kind of like a 70s episode in a way, but I found this clip. This painter named Scott Chasey. I got this from him. This is, of course, Burt Reynolds. He did a painting of Burt Reynolds using a pointillistic. I got this in 2011, and it's proud part of my 70s museum. And so there's a relationship because Burt Reynolds is of the same milieu and world as a Farrah Fawcett or a Suzanne Summers or a John Travolta. These are, of course, 70s things. And so artists could take a lot of different attitudes about these things. An artist could ignore all these things, of course, right? I mean, these things aren't, you may not be interested. Nothing wrong with that. Again, it's, this is the thing about art. It's not one way to make a movie. It's not one way to make a sculpture. There's not one way to, as we'll see shortly, do a TV show. So this is from, but what I'm saying is, or you could be like Keith Edmeyer. You can embrace, literally, not just figuratively, embrace such figures and things, and find them worthy of attention. Or you could be like Bob Fosse. Bob Fosse was interesting because he has the reason why his films are so complex as well as his musicals, as I wrote about him a couple blog posts back, is that he has a love-hate relationship with entertainment. He both things about it he really likes, the pleasure of it, but he's very much a finger-wagging critic of the downside or dark side of commercial culture. But in a sense, this is, let's just watch this clip because I thought it was fun to, this is Burt Reynolds making fun of it. But Burt Reynolds, one of the things he did, and he did a lot of talk shows, The Tonight Show, and instead of Johnny Carson, Steve Martin, of course, is the guest host in 77. So I thought you would have fun with this kind of, this kind of thing here. See?
Very uncomfortable having a mustache. The photoplay award, that coveted metal doodad. Where do you hang that? Your house is so beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
Where do you put all your awards? You really don't have much memorabilia.
On the front of the car. Got it right on the car there.
That's nice. And do they give you the same award for the sexiest male?
I didn't take that one the other night.
I was wondering where you were going to
about that.
put that.
Well, yeah. Probably find someplace to. Did you blow yours off, by the way?
No, I didn't bring the regular one with me.
Oh, good.
Spare.
A spare?
To blow my hair off.
Yes, that's all right. Looks good.
And this is very uncomfortable to wear this.
I don't mind, actually.
How long have you had that?
Since 1973.
Oh, but
Yeah.
you didn't have one before that. Did you find people like you better with it or without it?
I don't know. I find, I think they like me better with it. I don't know.
How many would think they'd like it better without it? That's not a fair, accurate judge though, because have seen you with it, and they really haven't seen you without it. So.
Well, what do you want me to do? I mean, I can't. A wild and crazy guy, but I don't know.
I don't think you're that wild and crazy. So,
I'll get it. Look, I'll get it.
now that, huh?
Talk to the funny.
So he's gonna shave off his mustache in front of a studio.
Dum, dum,
Yeah, this is the.
dum, dum, dum. He's doing it. He's actually doing it, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, boy. This is really fun.
That takes a while.
Huh? Well, actually, it's good because it's getting the hair out of my nose, too.
Want me to hold the mirror?
Yeah, what do you think?
Sure.
Okay, now,
I'm gonna pause here and talk a little bit. So my idea, like, of do an episode, I like to do an episode. I would show this clip. I would show the Madonna, Sandra Bernhardt, David Letterman clip, Drew Barrymore. I mean, there's different pop culture phenomenon. You know, the Joaquin Phoenix mock. His extraordinary performance on Letterman when he was promoting "I'm Still Here" is really interesting mockumentary that he made, sort of fake documentary about his nervous breakdown, and he went in character on, of course, Letterman, if you remember, and I think it was in the late '90s or early 2000s. In character of I'm not here, I'm still here, one of those movies. But there's all these different. This is in that kind of that a little bit of that kind of. Andy Kaufman.
Am I?
See, so.
Position for the test.
I think so.
I think so. How many people like him with the mustache? And then without the mustache. Like that.
This is a hell of a time to tell me.
Yeah, I think you should stick with the mustache, Kurt.
So that's a Tonight Show. What do we got here?
Do they give you the same word for the sexiest?
Where are we here?
For a while,
Let's
when we
go.
talk about
Yeah, this is Farrah herself. Now,
for a while.
this is I have so many ideas. Anyhow, that was an idea to do a TV type of episode, but I thought I would restrict it to the kind of narrow down the subject matter a little bit and talk about how Wendy Steiner wrote about something I did not know about. I knew about Matthew Barney. I was a Cremaster fanatic. I am a Cremaster fanatic. If you haven't seen that series or experienced it, I was fortunate to see it at the Guggenheim when it was live, and then the films and all that. And so to find out that Keith Edmeyer had connected with Matthew Barney is not at all surprising. Of course, given that they're using popular elements, and I use all my music. Well, I shouldn't say all. Close to all of my music is suffused with popularity and show tunes and rhythm and blues and funk and all sorts of things, and commercial jingles and stuff like that. So I wanted to play a little of this interview of, I don't know, it's from '79, so I think she's promoting Sunburn, I think. It's either Sunburn, which is another one of my favorite movies, actually Charles Grodin and Art Carney, great picture, or Somebody Killed My Husband, I think, with Jeff Bridges, one of those, that kind of era. But it's interesting just to watch just to see her talk and
Okay.
make sure it's here.
I think you're seeing one of the phenomenon of the 70s. Someone who rose from, I guess you would say, relative obscurity to prominence in a name that's on the lips of most people in America and perhaps the world. I've even heard you called the blonde of the 70s. What do those kinds of things mean to you in your life inside yourself? Are they scary, awesome? Are you enjoying it?
I think a combination of all those things. I'm constantly surprised when people give me titles like that. I think what happened for a while, when you talk about going from obscurity, all of a sudden I had a poster that sold the most posters, set a record, and then I was on the most magazine covers, and then I went into a series which was a #1 series. And then all of a sudden when you stop and you look around, you think, my reputation is getting so out of hand. It's really preceding what I've done. And that's how I felt for a while. I can remember reading in the Los Angeles Times, before I did my first film, Somebody Killed Her Husband, they had a list of the top 10 movie stars in the world, box office. And I think Robert Redford was #1, and there were 3 or 4 women, and I was #7 or #8. And I hadn't done a film at that time, and I thought, this is frightening. Don't say that about me. Wait, because it's, in a way, it is frightening to have to live up to a reputation that's already there.
Well, that's right. You become larger than life, and we all live in life. To say. Well, how did that all begin? Did someone come to you and say, you have a certain look that I think I can sell, and we're going to sell it? How did that all begin?
Well, I was going to the University of Texas, and my freshman year, a PR agent from Los Angeles started calling me.
Now, how did he even know about you?
I was one of the 10 most beautiful at the University of Texas, and it had never happened to a freshman before.
Now, what year was this?
That was 68. Okay. No, I came out in 68. I guess that was 65.
Okay.
And so they put my picture in the newspaper. And so he tried to get me to come out my freshman year, and my sophomore year, my junior year. Finally, at the end of my junior year, my boyfriend was going to Europe, and my roommate was going to do something else. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try it. And my parents were very much in favor of it because they said, this is something you may regret for the rest of your life if you don't do it. Get it out of your system, and then come back and finish your studies. I was an art major. So, and it was very funny because all around the dormitory, people would come and say, it's Hollywood calling again. It was like a big joke. And I think before I went out, I never really had any intention of staying. I thought I'll go out for 3 months, maybe do a couple of commercials, and then come back home.
And then the rest is history, they might say. But tell us what did happen when you got
Well, I went under contract to a studio about the 3rd week that I was out in Hollywood, and signed. I was put under contract for $350 a week, which at that time was a lot of money. I mean, I was going to school, and my parents were giving me
$350 a week, I guess, would be like $600 today, maybe $750. I don't know. I'm not no math. Somebody can.
I don't know, maybe $200 a month or $150 a month. So all of a sudden, $350 a week. I thought, for what? I mean, what am I going to do?
So that's very interesting. So what she doesn't say.
3 weeks or a month after I was under contract to do my.
But while you were doing that, you led the very.
So this is what she doesn't say is that she was
doing that. You led the very.
She was interested in this visual art thing as well as acting and modeling. Which she at the end of her life gets to actually do. Which is really, that's one of the reasons I love this and it's again that idea, that inclusivity, bringing in all the different forms, and the popular and the unpopular and the the fine art and the pop art. And so I thought it'd be fun, you know, it's to play some other clips that kind of related. This is Diane von Furstenberg talking about Warhol, and I thought it was interesting to hear a socialite is what the term was for her, I believe. And talking about the 70s, and kind of all these things are sort of, you know, examples. And I wanted to go, because I talked a little about Bresson, I wanted to go in the other direction. Wanted to go in a very more, as I say, popish, popular direction, a little bit. And so this is a kind of just this guy talking to.
Interesting life of a socialite in the 70s in New York. You're meeting with Andy Warhol and other people. What was that life like? Everybody famous who was young was a friend of yours, it sounds like.
New York City in the 70s was many things. For one thing, it was very dirty, it was very dangerous, and it was very cheap. And therefore, a lot of artists were here. It was a very exciting time. It was a time that people wanted freedom. We thought, our generation thought, we invented freedom, which of course we didn't. And it was fun. And there were a lot of creative people, and Andy Warhol was everywhere. And there was a lot of other people, and it was fun. But I mean, it's always fun when you're young.
So Andy Warhol said, hey, I'll paint a picture of you. Was that happening a lot?
Andy Warhol did my first portrait one night, very late, and he was looking for a white wall, because he would take a Polaroid, and then he would use the Polaroid and paint from there. And he needed a white wall. And in my home, they had no white wall, so we went to the kitchen. And because the white wall in my kitchen was so tiny, I lifted my arm, and that was the first time he painted me. Yeah. And then he painted me later for a show that he was planning to do in the 80s called Beauties.
And did he give you the paintings, or he?
He gave me, the first one, he gave me one, I bought two. The second time he gave me one, I bought none. And when he died, I bought them all.
There you have it. I'm going to turn this off because, again, this TV, I like this TV, but this system that I bought into is always yanking. You can't pause anything. It doesn't want. I think in their wisdom, they feel that they're saving some kind of energy or something, or they don't. I don't know. But it's so ugly what they choose to go to, their channel, so I just turned the damn thing off. And so I'm just gonna unhook this and move it. But it's fun, I like showing popular things. I like showing all kinds of things. I mean, So, So, back in the late 90s, there were, Charles Jenks, the architect as well as architectural critic, wrote a, for beginners type book. This is what is postmodernism. But as you can see, it's a thin kind of I really wish he hadn't passed, because he would be on our dream list, of course. But it is a condensed version, so the examples are few here. So that's the beginners or. But then I finally, here we go. This is his real book. This is one of the, again, the volume and mass. A lot of volume, a lot of mass here. Doorstop. This is Rizzoli put this out. Now there's a lot of, I mean, I don't even know how to yeah, I think we should save that for a future episode where we can. There's some Alex Katz paintings in here, and there's some. There's some Steve Hawley. So Steve Hawley's a painter, you know, and he uses them in. And this is a really large painting of Steve Hawley. And again, this is, you know, a nude, a figure in a room. Right? It's figuration, it's figural. It's not abstract. And then there's long, and in, you know, architecture, he's an architect, so he's, you know. Here's a building at Rice University, Texas, I think, just to show an example of the plan and then the building. There it is. And, you know, what makes that building at Rice not a modern building, a postmodern building, is there's all kinds of things like it announces what the entrance is. The entrance isn't hidden. You know, in a modernist box, you're not supposed to decorate, you're not supposed to announce anything. It's all one thing, if I can put it that way. And in this building, there's recesses. It looks almost like they tried to copy Oxford University from the 17th or 18th century, you know, a little bit. And that's another thing too, is that postmodern people will borrow or steal or take things that are older, like using a nude figure, for example, or using a person altogether, you know. So if you think about the sculptures Keith was doing, a sculpture of Farrah Fawcett or himself. Compare that to a Henry Moore sculpture or a Klaus Oldenburg, or different, you know, sculptures that are where there's not an obvious figure, you know, an obvious. And so that's kind of the spirit. The phrase that this is the more severe. This book really is volume and mass here. This is a more philosophic, Lyotard's take on it, which is his famous phrase is an incredulity towards grand narrative, which is a much nicer way of saying disbelief in the big story, or a single story, or a singular exclusive story, like, say, overcoming something would be. A modernist might say that a story, you know, but these are very, again, these are crude simplifications, and there are many counterexamples, and there are many things that don't fit, of course, into these formulations and taxonomies, right? And the only reason why I'm discussing them is just a way to kind of organize reality and, you know, organize an episode like this one. in which I want to talk about different things. So it's interesting to think about, of course, opening things up, opening this book up. That's why in my ad for this episode, I had the 2 record albums, the album from the 50s, I had the album from the 70s, look at that, beautiful, and then I had, actually, I think this is 1949. 48, 49, RCA Victor. These are different worlds. These are different ways, of presenting music. So you could present music, and you can, say we're going to present music. Just like in a book, you present a book, you have a cover. So this book is from the mid-'80s. And we turn it around and we look at this, and so since it's from the mid '80s, it says that it has some '70s things stuck in it, like the fonts is a little bit late '70s. He says, contrary to common belief, postmodernism is neither anti-modernist nor reactionary. It accepts the discoveries of the 20th century. In fact, by definition, it has to, because it's interested in the world. So if I'm right, that it's world approaching rather than world denying, it's got to be interested in all sorts of things, by definition. But it doesn't start from any principle. Like, it's not a principle. It was tired and fatigued with the big story, the big principle. You say, well, we're not going to have any ornamentation on a building. We're not going to have everything has to be a mansard roof. They were sick of that. They were sick of having a flat mansard roof. Or I don't know. Sick of having a front door that doesn't look like a front door. There's this really funny story. Is actually Tom Wolfe was talking about. He was in a building. He couldn't find where the entrance was because the entrance is hidden. It has kind of an alienating effect on the person at the building, and of course one of those many reasons why you would not want why you want all your doors to be multiple doors and is that the people that made that building were opposed to having anything grand. You don't want a grand entrance or any kind of entrance because that seems unfair and inegalitarian, right? You want to call into question the back door and the front door and make it all the same. It's more equal. These are ideological ideas and ideals that were part of modernism in the modern period, which is a long period. And we're still in it, like in a sense, even though we're in a postmodern period, there's tons of artwork now that's yearning, wants to go back. And then there's people that want to go back even before modern. They're traditionalists, right-wingers of all kinds and all sorts of ideas. And these are all things in the world, and that's kind of what we're dealing with here. And so I thought it would be fun to do a little episode, bring back Farah and I don't know if I should tell my Farrah Fawcett story about well, I went to see her play Extremities in New York. I was with Keith Hercules and my dad. Keith Hercules was a chemist for Aubrey Organics, was the chemist for many, many, many years. Worked on many formulations, and we went to a matinee of Extremities. And Extremities is a play, and she did a movie version, I think, in which she plays someone attacked by a rapist in the course of the play, an intruder. And then I won't say what happens in the play, but anyhow, I was watching this play, and a mentally, we would say, disturbed man jumped out of his seat and stormed the stage trying to save Farrah Fawcett. Thought she was in real danger. Interesting experience. Actually, going to that play and seeing that disrupt the proceedings, performance, got me to thinking a lot about, of course, questions of representation and make-believe and real and emotional consequences, and actually things that I feel today people are a little bit maybe more concerned with than they should be, but that's okay. But that's kind of where we are. And so you got Arturo Toscanini looking very serious here in the 1940s, conducting Beethoven's Ninth. And so I'm doing a lot of things coming up with the show, with Journey of Anesthesia podcast. We got, I look forward to March, and I look forward to part 2, because my book lunch, The Life of the Mind by Hannah Arendt, is over 1,000 views. So I want to say thank you to all of you. It's amazing to get that many views. And I hope, hopefully part 2 of that book will garner the same numbers, I enjoy doing that, and there's more to come. And there's more books to come, and more ideas, and more guests. I talked to a very, very interesting architect the other day. I'm going to come out with a special series of episodes about one movie, and I'm finalizing. Don't want to say the names yet. Well, it's kind of it. You'll see. It'll come. But that's going to be many series. I talked to an actress. I talked to a director. I talked to both of them, and then we took a pause because of the much needed strike, right? And the strike's over, and you got to regroup, as we say. And now we can meet. We couldn't meet then, and that's part of life. Look, life. Life. You do have seasons, and you do have interruptions. And as I said in my concert last Friday, I think I said, if the thing comes apart, if this song we're doing falls apart, we'll just put it back together. That's what that is, So maybe it's like housework. I don't know. You come back to it. Don't know really. That's a metaphor. I don't know if that works or not. But thank you, and I will try to do these aesthetic series a little more frequently, not just once a month. And so I don't know when the next one will be. Part 6 will be maybe in a couple weeks. And I already have some of that stuff figured out. There's some surprises coming. And so I thank you for joining us, and have a good rest of the week.